Hello, and welcome to the Product Insiders LinkedIn Live series, in which we interview product leaders and learn how they leveraged customer insights to navigate tough product decisions. I'm your host, Zach Lyons, managing partner of Agile Innovation Advisors. Now, if you're joining us live today, can you please enter your location in the chat so we know who is with us? Today, our special guest is Amy Mitchell, Product Director at Dell. And we'll be asking Amy some questions about her product decisions. However, if you have any specific questions for her or for me, please enter them in the chat and we'll get to them shortly. So with that, let's begin. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was so excited when you contacted me about talking about a challenge I had recently.
Excellent. I'm really happy to have you. I'm glad you were able to take time out of your busy schedule. So I'll ask you the first question, which is a reflection, thinking a little bit about a tough product decision that you've had to navigate. Can you start out by please telling us a little bit about your role at the time and the situation?
Sure, Zach. Yeah, I've been a product manager for a while, and I wanted to tell you about a situation I was in my job before I was at Dell. I was a platform product manager at a startup that does data protection, and I was the platform product manager for our software that runs on VMware and Hyper-V and other hypervisor platforms. So we're working with virtual machines. And we had a challenge. Our customers were pretty upset with the way our install was working. They
Mm.
were having to call in support on almost every time they were installing the software. And our support team had to go in and reinstall the software. Sometimes they were extending their maintenance windows just to let us do our software install. And I was hearing about this from multiple customers. I went and worked with our engineering team, and they didn't think it was a very serious problem. That was the challenge I was having, was how can I satisfy customers and get our engineering team to help out?
So customers were actually reaching out to you, but engineering didn't think it was an issue. Interesting.
Yeah, they were saying things like, well, they didn't read the documentation, or they said they had an old version of VMware, or they had some other unsupported software. Um, they were just saying the customer didn't really know how to install it,
Mm.
unfortunately.
So
I felt kind of stuck between these two sides.
gotcha. It's funny. It's that old adage, right? That it's like user error, right? It's the customer issue, not our issue. Okay. And
Yeah,
so very interesting. So maybe walk us a little bit. Like, so how did you handle this? What did you do? How did you actually
yeah.
try to navigate both sides?
Yeah, so first I wanted to see if there was really any data supporting this. So I
Okay.
went and searched through the cases to see, had people been failing on their installs. I mean, the support guys were telling me, yeah, it happened last night or last weekend, and we missed the maintenance window of the customer. So I went and got the data, and I saw there really were people struggling with installs on their own, and they were on current VMware software. They were on our current version trying to do an install and having trouble. So I brought this to both our support team and our engineering team, and then engineering said, "Oh, I can see this is a problem, but guess what? I can't recreate this. There's no logs because support had to go in and reinstall the software, so I can't recreate it. I do installs all the time, and there's no problem." So I was still stuck in between people. So I had to scratch my head. What am I gonna do about this? It's kind of one of those typical problems product managers come into, where you got customer experience problem, and then engineering's going, first engineering said, well, it's not really a problem. They didn't read the manual. Now I've confronted them with evidence, and it's like, I'm so sorry, I can't recreate this.
So
So
I can't. They couldn't help, right? Is what they're saying. So first they denied it was an issue on their side, and then they said we couldn't help. And to help our people listening as well, you're responsible for this whole product, including the customer experience, the install. That was part of
right,
your
the
responsibility.
platform. So what we did on the software is we had our unique software, and we had an integration layer that integrated with the virtualization layer underneath us coming from third parties. So if the integration was messed up, then that was my responsibility. And as my customers are saying, "Hey, you're the platform product manager. I really have a problem with this." So I got an engineering to agree it's a customer experience problem. So I had to take some more steps now.
Yeah.
Uh,
What did
so
you do?
so then the next thing I did, well, first of all, I felt like I had to keep trying stuff. This is too big of a problem to just sweep it under the carpet and say, okay, sorry, we can't recreate it. Have a nice day. So I came up with two new ideas. So the first idea was, let's help our test team. So one concern is, they said, we're testing installs up and down here and the other way. And so I wanted to see, what are they testing? Well, they were actually testing so many permutations of old versions, new versions, and versions in between. They were testing things that would never happen in the field. So they
Hmm.
were spending a lot of extra effort on testing the install when it never happened. So one thing I asked them to do is to align their testing to our compliance matrix.
Okay.
So we maintain a compliance matrix that says this is allowed to go from and to. So getting that alignment with the test team saved them time. So it was a good thing there. But how are we going to fix the install problem? So what I asked is, can they dump logs as we go along during the install? And they were like, heck no, I'm not putting in debug code. It doesn't seem like it's going to really help. But then I showed them how much time we were losing, both our support team having to do reinstalls and customers missing their maintenance windows. And that was enough to come back to the data. They agreed to put in the the logging going on during the install, dump that off to a log file so that they could recreate it. But then a new problem came up.
Hmm.
This was a process problem. So engineering was like, okay, you convince us we got to put it in, but who's going to look at these logs? We have to look at the logs to figure out how to recreate it. And so we were again at a stalemate. Luckily, the test guy, who was so relieved on the test reductions, he said, "Hey, I'm going to evaluate it. I will look at the logs because you've already reduced my time. So
Hmm.
I'll help you out." I helped the test guy. The test guy came back, said he'd help me now. So he started having his team evaluate these logs that were getting dumped on installs. And lo and behold, they found some bugs. And it
Oh,
took
wow.
time, but not too much time. And finally, our install issues started receding, especially as customers moved to the newer software. So
Hmm.
it took a lot of work by not giving up. So
I, it is interesting as I'm listening. I can't help but think it feels like engineering wasn't being very helpful the entire journey. You were kind of pulling them, kicking and screaming, to try to help address this customer issue. Any insights around why you think that was? Is there anything there that was like causing that? I guess that people can
yeah,
look.
that's a great question. And it points out that maybe my relationship wasn't so strong.
Hmm.
Um, I came at them like, customers having a problem, what are you going to do about it? When I might have been more successful if I'd worked out a relationship, and we had had a common understanding of the customer experience we're all shooting for. So up until this time, I had limited contact with the test person. I was kind of working at the high level with the director of engineering, VP of engineering, and by coming down just a wee bit and talking about the overall customer experience we're looking for. So what happened is I had to establish relationships in the middle of a problem. When the Now, looking back, hindsight, of course, you see a lot more things.
Yeah.
What I probably should have done when I came into that job is to say, let's look at our customer journey map. Let's all agree on what's the experience we want to have at the major steps on the customer journey. And then I would have been talking directly with the test guy. What are you testing? How does that relate to our customer experience as well as engineering? So I should have had those relationships built before, and we should have had a shared understanding of the solution we're giving to the customer. And I've found, this is recent learning on my part, that a customer journey map is a good way to get to that common understanding, and you have a low key way to build relationships with key people in your product team. So I ended up having to do everything. And that I want to say this engineering team and the test team were extremely cooperative, but we didn't have that basic relationship. So it started off a little bit of a conflict.
And you did have a customer journey map, but it was just not shared and
No, I
evangelized.
didn't do it.
Oh, you didn't do it. Okay.
I came into the team like, hey, roadmap, features, customer experience, and it's all talk. We hadn't done the investment in discussing it together. And I learned that afterward. I didn't have that tool in my toolkit at the
Ah, I
time.
see.
Yeah.
So eventually you did put together a customer journey map or did not for this job? Did you actually end up?
I moved on, but luckily we verbally came around to a customer experience and how we keep versioning aligned, and we put things in the background when we need to. When an old version's no longer used by any customer, we don't need to test it anymore.
Right.
So we didn't end up doing a customer journey map. We ended up having our compliance matrix kind of be the Bible that drives our work, our shared work, and never got around to a customer journey map. But now looking back, now that I have done a customer journey map, I've seen that it does help build those relationships, and it helps have a joint understanding of the customer solution. So then when you're in trouble, you're working on the trouble from a common understanding
Mm.
instead of trying to do it all at once. I think we could have been quicker if we'd had that. In the end, it worked out. I think we could have got there faster if we'd done the pre-work.
For folks who are listening and are like, yes, customer journey map makes sense. We have this common understanding. What would you say are key things in it that would actually help? Right? What are some key parts of a journey map that you think helps with get common understanding? Is there anything specifically that jumps out at you?
Yeah, I can give you a link. I had written a newsletter article about it, but when you're delivering software as a service, there's a few key phases. The one is the pre-sale phase,
Okay.
what you tell the customer about what you're going to deliver. Then the customer onboards. There's an onboarding piece of the customer journey, and that's where the install fell into that.
Mm.
Then there's the support piece of the journey, which is when you have a problem or you want to expand service or add something new. And then the final part is either the termination or the renewal stage,
Okay.
because when you're in software as a service, at the end, the customer either decides to renew or they say, I don't need your service or product anymore. And so that's really what we're building up to. Of course, you want customers to always renew and you want them to expand their service and grow. So that's part of the reason why you look at the total map is so that you have a common understanding of what you should do to have the best experience possible. And
See,
so that helps when you if you talk about that calmly and everyone agrees or maybe they disagree and then you come to a conclusion, it's a lot easier to do that when you're not in trouble. Because when once you're in trouble, you got customers complaining about
mm,
install, you're gonna really worry about the customer onboarding experience when there's so many other important things overall on the customer experience.
right. And that you mentioned that relationship. It's hard to build a relationship when you're under stress from customers. So other than building relationships, having a journey map, is there anything else that you would taken away from this experience that you would do differently, uh, looking backwards?
Yeah, the third piece is a common understanding of the solution for the customer.
Okay.
So, because sometimes something you think might not be important actually is important,
Mm,
such as what we found out on our compliance matrix, that was like just some documentation thing at first. Then we started realizing it could actually reduce our effort and make sure that we didn't miss something important so that when a new release of the OS came out, we would test to that new release and then we could confidently tell customers, yes, we support this new thing. So that was something until we started thinking about the solution, we didn't realize that a compliance matrix is
mm,
important for time savings on our part, as well as letting customers know that we're good with something new.
very interesting. What a fascinating story. I love the learnings too. It's good takeaways for anyone who's obviously different circumstances, but building that relationship with engineering, right? Instead of coming in, uh, asking for help when you're under pressure, having that common understanding, a journey map, or other types of customer insights that everyone's agreed on. Interesting. And then also making sure you're clear on, what your scope of work is. I mean, that's really sort of the compliance piece. And I will ask if other people are listening, if you do have a question for Amy, you can feel free to enter those in the chat. I know some of them there is a slight delay, so we'll give you a minute or so to try to enter your question and we can get to those. Uh, hopefully as you're listening, and my goal is for everyone to get, one new insight and one new learning from the conversation that you can take with you as you go about your product career. The other thing is, I will say, is that we don't have to just ask questions now. We can feel free to continue the discussion by entering your comments or questions in the chat later. This will stay up on LinkedIn, like all posts. I'm trying to see if any questions have come in. I know sometimes people don't have questions at the point in time, and sometimes come in later.
Yeah, we'll watch the LinkedIn. If people come back with questions, we'll certainly respond.
I'm not seeing anything come in. So I guess with that, I can say, again, thank you for sharing your story and telling us your learnings. As I said, feel free to continue the conversation in the chat afterwards. And also, please stay tuned for our next Product Insiders. We'll be having that again right here on LinkedIn. And if you do have any questions for Amy or I, feel free to reach out. You can direct message us or put your comments into the chat. And until next time, I'm your host, Zach Lyons with Agile Innovation Advisors. So take care, everybody. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.